Hello, everyone, and welcome to another look at building subtexts. For the past 2 weeks, I've been going through and putting some state-of-the-art artificial intelligence into subtext. And I really do feel like, after last night, that this is the next evolution in narrative structure software. I just want to take you into the example that I was working on last night, just to get everything set up. What you should know going into it is all the storytelling, every single thing that's in there that is part of the story was completely generated by the application. I had nothing to do with it, even the title. So let's come into the title here and I'll walk you through what I did last night and show you how this is going to be the start of a brand new revolution in telling stories. So right here, I have the premise: abandon running away and you can secure your place in the circle of life, which is 100% taken from The Lion King. So if I come into here and I look at all the premises that are in subtext, which currently I believe is about 530, 540 of them. If I go and just go to Lion King, just do it old school here. Lion King, if you clicked into it, you could see that based on this premise, Subtext knows exactly the personality of the story, the different perspectives and different through lines, what's actually driving the two central characters and what is at the center of their narrative argument. And then, of course, the cool part is what happens in each and every act. These transits describe the transitory nature of a through line throughout a narrative. So this first column is what most people would understand as Act 1. This is what most people would understand as Act 2. And this is what most people understand as Act 3. It's broken up into 4 sections. And then within each one of those sections, you have progressions. And so this is what would happen in the first act. Typically, they turn out to be scenes. Sometimes they're sequences. They don't necessarily translate one to one, but this would be the progression of it. And Subtext even figures out what's beneath this, but I'm not going to get into that for this video right now. This is a subtext story form, which is slightly different than a dramatic story form. Here you can see all the different story points that you would find in a complete narrative. And here again, you can see those transits. What I'm doing right now is I'm focusing on the main character through line of a story, because it's been my experience over the past 4 or 5 years helping playwrights, novelists, screenwriters, directors, producers, helping them craft their stories that most everybody has a pretty clear understanding of the objective story, which is the plot. Everybody has a really clear idea of the influence character because it's always easy to write about somebody other than yourself. The relationship story typically is a complete blind spot and nobody knows anything about it. I'm going to save that one until the very end because it requires a lot of special tweaks and accommodations in order to work out in an application. So what I did right now is I'm just focusing on the main character through line, which is just the personal perspective, the personal journey of the main character as it relates to the objective story, as it relates to the inequity at the center of the story. In order for each of these through lines to tell the meaning of that premise, this would be what the main character would be going through. These are thematic issues that they would be dealing with. When I went to go build my story, I just picked that one because it's a pretty typical structure and I was just focusing on making sure everything was working. So stuff like The Lion King, Black Panther, Mad Max Fury Road, Old Henry, all these films all have the same exact narrative structure underneath, and they're all communicating the same message, which is stop running away from your problems, stop trying to prevent things from happening, and then you can achieve something. What I did first is I came into the through lines, and there are 2 overarching ways of looking at a particular through line. The first is the main character domain, and this just came up automatically. When you build your narrative structure, Subtext goes through and grabs some random storytelling that sits on top of the structure. And so right here, this general illustration is being partnered, which I thought was really interesting. And then what you can do is then you can tailor this illustration to be something that's a little more specific to your story. Because it was late at night, I just put being partnered with a bloodthirsty zombie. I thought it would be interesting. And then right here, this is the artificial intelligence, this little cute little robot here. So when you click on him, what it does is it goes out and it gets some ideas for you, tries to develop some storytelling ideas so that you can then start to build your story from that structure. This first one that came up, Ken is the main character. Ken is constantly trying to outrun the zombie, but it seems to be gaining on him. Ken's only hope is to find a weapon that can kill the zombie, but his search has been unsuccessful so far. That sounds very plot driven, objective story driven. So I didn't go with that. This one is more Ken's internal conflict is whether or not to find a way to kill the zombie or learn to live with him. So that would be the idea. And you would like the ones that you like, and then it drops it down here into the subtext. The main thing here with subtext is there's a difference between the storytelling, which is what is actually in the story, and what is driving the story underneath. So that was that story form that you saw previously. This is the subtext that I picked. Ken's story is one of internal conflict as he tries to maintain his humanity while being tethered to a creature that wants nothing more than to consume human flesh. Ken's story is ultimately one of hope as he overcomes his personal demons and learns to coexist with his zombified partner. That sounds like a nice general idea of the story. And this is just going to be his journey. Once I figured out the overall domain, the general area of conflict that Ken would be going through, then I came down and got a little more specific and looked at the primary type of conflict. So this would be a little bit more detailed, whereas the other one was bigger. This one's getting a little stronger, a little more in detail. And here, this is all about the future. So establishing a bright future for everyone. And if you think of films like Lion King or Black Panther, the problem for the main character, at least personally, is either worry for the future or there's something coming up in the future that they have to deal with. Same thing with Ken. But my particular spin on it, I liked, see here where it says establishing a bright future for everyone. You can actually come in here, and Subtext has thousands and thousands of illustrations of what future could look like, avoiding an imminent future, going to a group's future, existing in the hereafter, thousands and thousands of user-submitted illustrations that all fit into there, and illustrations that I personally approve that work with future. And then, of course, you have a shuffle button here. What I was doing just last night is I just kept shuffling through each one until establishing a bright future for everyone felt like something that Ken would be doing, not only for his partner, the zombie, but maybe for other people around him. So when I generated the subtext for it, the artificial intelligence part of the application, it came back with this one that I liked, which was Ken tries to make a bright future for everyone by establishing relationships with the zombies, which backfires when the zombies turn on him and try to eat him. Ken's bright future quickly turns into a nightmare as he is forced to confront the zombies head on. In the end, Ken is able to overcome his fear of the zombies and learn to coexist with them. So you can see it's taking from this and just extrapolating that with an emphasis on the future. It's doing exactly what I do with writers all the time once they have their story form. The very best part about this, which you'll see, is it's completely inspirational. It's completely creative, and it's all kinds of different ideas for writers everywhere. Because everybody that I've read this story to, they always have their own particular take on it because they see themselves in it and then they add to it. That's exactly what every author is going to be able to do with it. And again, I didn't do anything except click this little robot button. But that general idea of what Ken is going through personally, I then went into his through line. The way that I teach people to develop their stories is to go through the 4 different through lines, develop them in isolation, because people have a tendency to blend different through lines together, and then it collapses the story, makes it less dynamic. It's like the same story point repeated over and over again. Most people can do that anyways without software or without any sort of understanding of narrative structure. So if people are going to do that, they might as well just do that without this. If you're going to use it, you might as well leverage it and get the most out of it. With the main character through line here, I came into his arc, which most people understand. Everybody knows character arc, right? So this is a visualization of Ken's character arc. In the beginning, his motivation, his biggest problem is going to be avoidance. That's going to be the thing that he's trying to stop. He's trying to prevent things from happening. And then his arc, where he ends up at the end, is he's going after something. He's pursuing something. You can see how that works in The Lion King with Simba physically running left to right. And then at the end of the film, he runs right to left. I think that's the direction it goes. Same thing with Mad Max Fury Road, going one direction. And then at the midpoint, they turn around and go the other direction. That's just a visualization of avoiding to pursuing and shows that changed character arc. That's why I picked this, because it's a very easy one to get. There's nothing wrong with this. This is great, but it's just very familiar, at least in this culture here. Opening up his baseline, which is where he starts, again, it took that motivation of avoid and gave me an idea of preventing someone from getting hurt. And I thought, all right, let's make this about the loved one, the one he's actually partnered with. So I just went in there and changed that to preventing loved ones from getting hurt. And when I clicked on the AI, it came back with one that I liked, which was Ken's personal struggle is preventing loved ones from getting hurt. Ken is constantly worried about his partner, a bloodthirsty zombie, and how she might hurt people. Ken is always trying to find ways to protect people from her, and this is the source of his personal angst. You can imagine a character who's motivated to do all this prevention, but is actually creating more and more problems. That's the whole essence of how I'm going to use this story to prove that doing that is a bad thing. Because I'm going to show in the beginning him trying to do all this prevention, and it's creating all kinds of problems. And then at the end, he's pursuing, and it's going to solve his issue. So I really liked that. And then I left the evolution, which would be the end here, because I wanted to be surprised. You could definitely do that from the very beginning if you wanted to, but I'm just speaking about it in terms of how I developed it. And what I've done is I have the synopsis here, which is a place that's going to collect all the different story points you work on. Those three are just a little bit, like I showed you in the story form. There's a lot that goes into the main character. For right now, I just have those three. And then when you summarize them, you come in here and summarize the through line, it's going to go through subtext and collect it all and put it into a synopsis. Ken's story is one of internal conflict as he tries to maintain his humanity while being tethered to a creature that wants nothing more than to consume human flesh. Ken's story is ultimately one of hope as he overcomes his personal demons and learns to coexist with his zombified partner. Ken is constantly worried about his partner, a bloodthirsty zombie, and how she might hurt people. Ken is always trying to find ways to protect people from her, and this is the source of his personal angst. This is a fantastic reference that any writer can come back to. It's a nice short little paragraph. You could use it in your pitch when you pitch the story to agents or managers or whoever it is that you're going for, and just have a really good understanding of what that character's personal journey is. And then this is the fun part. This is what I've been working on the last week or so in the story beats. So if you look here in the story form, you'll see that Subtext has predicted the thematic issue in each transit. So Act 1 will be all about progress. Act 2A will be about the past. Act 2 will be about the future. And Act 3 will be about the present. You have the complete story there. And then when you come into the through lines, you'll see, if I collapse them all, you'll see these are those 4 transits. They've already been built out. They look more like this in the beginning when you're just getting started. But once you've built it all out, you get this, which is the whole thing here. And it has the baseline here at the top. And try not to read the evolution, so you'll be surprised at what happens, because I was surprised as I went through it. Knowing that it was just about progress, I again just shuffled through a couple different ones. And this one just stood out as being interesting to me. Again, these are all different versions of progress. Increasing one's status. When I went to have Subtext generate some storytelling, this is what it came up with. Ken protects people from his partner by keeping her away from populated areas. To get the money needed to keep his partner fed, Ken turns to a life of crime. Ken finds a way to control his partner's hunger, but it involves feeding her live humans. What I like is it maintained the story that I'm trying to tell. In fact, these were 3 separate ideas that I had just saved that I liked. And then you can merge them together into one general idea. So you can grab different ones that might not necessarily seem to fit storytelling wise, but they're all tied together through that prevention and getting into trouble because you're trying to prevent something from happening. And then if I wanted to, right here, continue, you can just continue, and Subtext will keep telling this story of this little part here. But I'm going to keep going through this just to keep this kind of short. The thing I'm really excited about, this is actually what's happening underneath. So you can see here this little curved piece here. This is the storytelling, which will actually be the story that you tell. But if I wanted to keep track of the subtext of what's going on in the main character through line here, Subtext provides you more than just progress. It provides you that it's going to be an activity and that it'll essentially be a way for Ken to resist growing. That's how you think of these 3 things put together. And so when I asked Subtext to interpret the subtext of it, it came back with Ken is torn between his loyalty to his partner and his guilt of the lives he has to end to keep her fed. Ken's partner is a metaphor for his addiction, and the people he kills are a representation of the innocent victims of his addiction. So there's so much you could develop off that, and every writer is going to have their own interpretation of that. But I love how it just took this, combined it with all this, and gave me a better understanding of what Ken is going through. This is for the whole act. So there might be 2, 3, maybe even 4 scenes of Ken going through the journey of this act, which would be here in the progressions, but I won't get into, but at least I know exactly what he's going through in that act. And then you can just summarize it here, and Subtext will take this and give you a title for this act. Ken keeps his partner away from populated areas to protect people from her hunger. So not only is he trying to protect her from dying, but he's also trying to protect everybody being killed by her. And so then he has to go do it, and it's a life of crime. And whew, that's a rough life for Ken. In the second act, it moves into a different area of storytelling. This one's all about the past. So I flipped through and I eventually got repudiating the past. And I had no idea what was going on in the past with Ken and his zombie wife or partner. So I had Subtext help me figure it out. He wrapped his arms around his partner, keeping her close as they walked through the forest. He knew she was hungry and he didn't want her to hurt anyone. I'm sorry, he whispered. I know this is hard for you. She growled in response, but she didn't try to pull away from him. I promise. I'll find a way to help you. We'll figure this out together. Ken's kind of a nice guy. He felt her body relax slightly at his words, and he knew he had made the right decision. He would find a way to help her no matter what. Suddenly she stopped and turned to him, her eyes filled with anger. Why? She demanded. Why did you do this to me? So cool. I didn't mean to, he said quickly. I didn't know what would happen. You should have known, she said, her voice full of accusation. You should have known what this would do to me, but you didn't care. You just wanted to help yourself. So then, boom, all these different kind of ideas of what happened to her. I could generate a lot of this on my own, and I'm sure there's a way that I could do it within the application in the future. But right now, I'm so excited about exploring what Ken did and why she ended up being the way she is. You should have known, she says, you should have known that what this would do to me, but you didn't care. You just wanted to help yourself. No, that's not true, he protested. I care about you. I'd never do anything to hurt you, but you did, she said, her voice breaking. You hurt me more than anyone ever has, and I can't forgive you for that. Whoa, that's crazy. And so you can see that's more about his emotional journey. And I'm going to go through and do the plot of this story. I'll build it out completely. But even just that, his personal journey, all of a sudden, I feel so much for Ken because I don't know what the heck he did. All that guilt is why he's trying to prevent her from being hurt because he has some kind of responsibility with it. So again, when I asked Subtext to tell me the subtext, it answered, the subtext of this scene is that the man feels guilty for what he has done to his partner. He knows that he has changed her into a monster and he's worried about what she might do because of it. He is also worried that she will never forgive him for what he has done, which is an interpretation of the actual subtext of what's going on and just gives me a foundation, a subtext, for even continuing this more and developing out this act to be an even stronger first half of the second act. So then we reach the midpoint and we get to the second half of Act 2, which is all about the future and where there'll be some sort of transformation in Ken. If you think about it, this story has been developing from somebody who's always trying to prevent something, and is eventually going to get to a place where they're going to be motivated to pursue. What Subtext doing is it's tracking that arc and then matching it up with what the structure actually asks for in order to tell that complete and meaningful story. So here, a positive outlook, because I thought it might be nice to give Ken a little bit of hope. Ken wrapped his arms around his partner to keep her close as they walked through the forest. He knew she was hungry and didn't want her to hurt anyone. Despite the fact that his partner was a bloodthirsty zombie, Ken still had a positive outlook for her. He was determined to prevent her from hurting anyone, even if it meant putting himself in danger. This scene is a transformative moment for Ken as he starts to question his motivation of preventing loved ones from getting hurt. He begins to realize that his partner is still a person, even though she is a zombie. I would have never thought of that, but that again opens up so much that I could write about either my own personal experiences that I could put into this kind of fantastic setting, but just the fact that now he's opened up, not just thinking of her as a zombie, but not thinking of her as a person. He's growing, he's transforming. This realization changes his perspective and helps him to see the value in everyone, no matter what form they may take. It's so cool. And the subtext. Ken's selfless act of wrapping his arms around his partner to keep her close is a turning point in their relationship. Up until this point, Ken has been focused on preventing his partner from hurting anyone. However, this moment of intimacy and connection shows Ken that his partner is still a person, even though she is a zombie. This realization changes Ken's perspective and helps him to see the value in everyone, no matter what form they take. And again, that would be a change in his mentality. It's an increase in the conflict there, so the current of the narrative, and it's a transformative moment for him. I forgot to do this in the previous one, but Ken's partner is a zombie who's about to hurt someone, but he protects her, and in doing so, realizes that she's still a person, which is great because when you go in to do the other through lines, it's nice just to be able to refer back to this in a simple sentence and not have to dive into everything that's actually going on. So now I can always go back here and, oh, okay, that's what this story beat was about. And then finally, close your eyes so you don't see the ending. I was really surprised by this. I didn't expect it. There were some other ones that were a little bit nicer, but I really liked how this ended. And I changed it to being focused on someone's immediate concerns. And you can see how already that gives a complete feeling. And that's all about the magic of the story form. It's telling that complete narrative. Ken was being chased by his partner, the zombie, through the forest. She was hungry. Whoa, he's being chased by her. He knew she wouldn't be able to help herself from attacking anyone she came across. Maybe that's why he's being chased by her. He ran as fast as he could, trying to stay ahead of her. As he ran, he heard her growling and snarling behind him. He knew she was getting closer and closer. Finally, he reached the edge of the forest. He turned to face his partner, who was now only a few feet away from him. He looked into her eyes and saw the hunger there, but he also saw the person she used to be. He wrapped his arms around her and held her close. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm sorry it had to end this way." Then he pulled out his knife and stabbed her in the head, killing her. He collapsed to the ground, grieving for the person she used to be. Beautiful. And the narrative set up so that this is not personally tragic ending, but it's actually a place where he gets to a moment of resolution. He finally gets relieved at that angst of having to protect her from everything because he finally saw her for the person that she was meant to be. The subtext: Ken is struggling with the decision to kill his partner. He knows she's hungry and she's going to attack anyone she comes across, but he also can't bring himself to kill her. He's grieving for the person she used to be, and he knows this is the only way to end her suffering. And then, of course, I make it the only way for him to end his suffering. So you're allowed to change this. I haven't changed any of this. It's completely generated. I'll push button. The only thing I changed was the being partnered with a bloodthirsty zombie. It did occur to me, I forgot to mention, when I got to this last transit, you don't have to do it in this order. You can bounce around and it will develop it based on what is most interesting to you. But I had actually come back and decided being chased was going to be the evolution. So that's actually why that last act is about being chased, is I'd actually come in here to illustrate how pursuit would play out. But I didn't know he was going to kill her. That was something that came up during the transit development. Ken grows out of his angst by being chased because he realizes that he can't protect people from his partner forever. He has to face the reality that she's a dangerous zombie and that people will get hurt if they're around her. This chase forces Ken to confront his fears and to accept that he can't always protect people from harm. Instead of preventing her from getting hurt, he's allowing himself to be chased by her so that he can get her away from everybody else, so that he can then kill her. It's beautiful, beautiful. With that in mind, I came through into the moments, which is where you can start to weave the different story beats of a through line together. I just have the main character transits in here. Usually when you add a new moment here, they're untitled. And you can always come up with different titles because you'll have different story beats from different through lines in a single section here. Whether or not this is a scene or a chapter or whatever sort of sequential understanding of narrative that you appreciate, you can use these story beats and put that into there. I always like something because it reminds me of my animation days of the different sequences that you would be working on. And so what I did is I actually just hooked this up last night, where if you click the actual moment button, it'll go through and take the storytelling that's in here and come up with a cool title for the sequence. So the first sequence is Ken and the Beast. The second one is the accusation. I never would have come up with that on my own. The third one is the importance of realizing the value in everyone. Okay, that's nice. And then 4 is the end. When you come down here into the treatment and you put it all together, you have Act 1, Ken and the Beast. You have Act 2, which is the accusation that then moves into the importance of realizing the value in everyone. And then Act 3, which is the end. And this could be a fantastic short story. Short stories are just a single through line or even a single act. One way to do it is a single act. This is doing a short story through just doing one through line. And you get a really nice feeling, a nice complete, this would be a tale. It's not a complete story because you don't have the other through lines. Because just think of all the implications of their relationship and think of her impact on him and why she presents an obstacle to his justifications and why she makes it impossible for him to not deal with, always trying to avoid everything. And then, of course, the plot. And you need the other people, the zombies, the sheriff, whatever sort of things that are going on around them. And then you can download it into Markdown format if you like to write an IA writer like I do, Fountain, if you like to do Highland, which is perfect for screenplays or any kind of treatments, and it formats it for that particular application. And then a Scrivener, which I was happy to do for all the novelists out there, screenwriters that use it. It puts it so that each of these is individual card and breaks it up into the different acts. This is really exciting. And of course, the coolest part is then once you have at least one through line developed, Subtext will then offer up suggestions for titles. And Hunger of the Dead, a zombie love story, I thought was a pretty decent title just for the first one. It was the first one that came up and I just thought it was great. And it does it based on everything that you've written. So I'm really excited about making this available to everybody. It really is the next evolution in the development of narrative structure applications because it combines all the excitement and chaotic serendipity of artificial intelligence text generation with a narrative structure that actually means something, that is actually trying to communicate some sort of premise. You can read through this story and you can understand, oh, okay, once you stop trying to prevent things from happening or running away from your problems, you can then at least secure some sort of peace of mind, even if it means having to lose someone that you love very dearly. So that's it for building subtext. I'm really super excited about making this available to everyone. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below and I will see you next time.